Oh, fuck it. Anyway. So, hey, no one's listening, but this video just, well, I'm not making a video, just thought I'd go live. I'm sat here actually kind of just doing nothing at the moment. So I figured, well, there's something proactive to help people. And maybe if they've got any questions, then yeah, ask me, fire away. Fire away. Anyway, I'm just having a look on my screen at the moment to see how much of a time lag there is. All right, it's about maybe 10 seconds time lag. Yeah. Anyway, so I've been relatively busy for the past couple of years, and I've done lots of programming. I haven't really done much PHP programming because I do mainly Swift and also TypeScript, JavaScript, TypeScript, the occasional bit of Angular on the weekend, maybe if I've got like a project that I want to do just to test out. I do a little bit of HTML5, JavaScript with Canvas and so on, just to play around, see what can be done, which I find pretty cool. I bought an Arduino the other month and did some programming in that with C++, but I haven't had much spare time, to be honest with you, with doing any more. I hopefully plan to start again soon, doing a few projects, but there's been a lot of personal things which I've been needed to do and so on. Oh look, there's people watching now. Type a comment in if you've got a question, because then at least I know what you want to talk about. I'm just here rambling away, talking about nothing. I'm willing to answer any questions about PHP, about JavaScript. I've got my laptop here if required to research any questions which you may have. Anyway, so one of my favourite things at the moment is NativeScript, because NativeScript using TypeScript can help you to create mobile apps using one language, and it's very strongly typed. Well, it is strongly typed. NativeScript. It is strongly typed, as long as you use TypeScript in the correct way. And although I haven't actually had the time to spend days and days and days using it, I've done lots of a few hours here and a few hours there to see how much you can do with TypeScript. But there's some awesome tools available that you can install on iOS, where it's called Native Preview, I believe. What have we got here? Native. But anyway, you download this one application from the App Store, which goes on your device, and then you can essentially just go straight onto the website, and then you can just code things straight on there, and it will go straight onto the phone and work there and then, which is really fantastic. I mean, why you want to spend months programming your iOS app when you've then got to go ahead and spend months learning how to program the Android app, or if you're going to do it simultaneously at the same time. It must be so much stress. So I would prefer, if I was going to create my own app and I had the time to consistently do it every single day, then I would choose one of NativeScript, React Native, or Flutter. Now Flutter's using Dart, but with React Native and with NativeScript, you can use then TypeScript, which I think is beneficial. Now, React uses JSX, which is also pretty cool as well. But then again, I don't find it that bad because of how NativeScript has its nice, or Angular, so we say, has its nice templating system. I'm not that bothered about separating the code, the logic, and then the templates away from each other, because I think it is very, very well done anyway. Now, a couple of things that I do need to spend some time on to research is the likes of the big hefty frameworks, which you can use, and to make sure that you've got full flexibility with them. But like I said, I haven't had enough time to really spend months creating an application. I've created a couple of small applications on it, but never really done anything with them. They were just like test apps to see what they can do, to test out a few things. Yeah. So as we all know that iOS 4.2 came out in the past few days or week and so on, which was pretty good. Xcode 10, I started using it as of yesterday. What do we got today? Yeah, no, I start using it as of last week. Sorry, I used the beta version months ago when it first came out, so I was pretty happy with that. But using Xcode 9.3 and Xcode 10 at the same time, or the Xcode 10 beta at the same time, tend to cause lots of problems with the compilation of then the Swift projects. So I try to kind of just do a little bit of coding on Xcode 10 beta and try and do the bulk of it on Xcode 9.3. But now that Xcode 10 has become the standard, I'm a lot happier. It seems to be, it's generally speaking a lot nicer IDE to do, to program iOS apps. Now, when it comes down to programming using the likes of JavaScript, then I am 100% a Visual Studio Code fan. I love it to bits, and I've always got Xcode open more than once on my computer, and also Visual Studio Code open to do any, like if I want to do any like readmes or any small job. So I work a lot with Firebase and Firestore as well. So 9 times out of 10, I've always got some form of Cloud Functions JavaScript script there that will run a Cloud Function for Firebase. So I tend to be writing like the actual iOS, either implementing a view or a data class, which will then in turn possibly call like or it will use Firebase and write some data to Firebase, and then I'll write a Cloud Function that will then be ready to be triggered when that write on the mobile device happens. So then I can do something here, and then it can in real time update the iOS application, which is really cool. Now the great thing which I like about the Cloud Functions is that you've got also the ability to do HTTPS triggers. So you don't have to have just one single trigger. You can use Express as well to create your own node server, Express server, and open up your endpoints here. So you can just have one Cloud Function endpoint, and then within inside of that script that you've then deployed to Firebase functions, you can then have all of your different get listeners or post listeners and so on for it, or endpoints, which is really cool. So you've only got one, you can centralize it. So I think that's really cool to have, and I try to use as minimal code as possible in the iOS application. So I know that I've got the redundancy of always changing. If I've made a mistake in the iOS app and it takes like a day, 2 days to send to the App Store, and then by the time, if you make the smallest mistake, you've just got to change it in the Cloud Functions rather than do a complete rebuild and archive the application once again and send it to the App Store. and it's a lot faster. You know, the cloud, the Firebase Cloud Functions. I mean, they are so fast. It's incredible. And especially if you've got one cloud function, and the first time it gets triggered, it could take anywhere between 200 to say 600 milliseconds to until it's completed execution. But if it's then fired once again, um, then it will tend to be a little bit faster, because that one thread, let's call it, is already up and running, and then it will be faster. And then if it's fired again, it will get even faster and even faster, to the point where it's taking possibly like 10 to maybe 15 milliseconds to be executed, in comparison to the first like 600 milliseconds. So I'm a big fan of Firebase. There's also many things which I wouldn't use Firebase for. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't use Firebase for any like geolocations and stuff like that, because yeah, there's GeoFire and there's all sorts of other frameworks that you can use to work with geolocations and so on. But it's just a headache, an absolute headache. And I much prefer like sticking a MongoDB database behind some form of HTTP endpoint, and using possibly Firebase as like a kind of RabbitMQ way of reading and writing and deleting stuff. But that also adds another level of complexity. It depends whether you really need the real time. If you don't need the real time with if you don't need the real time here, then I would suggest not. Yeah, I would suggest that say that Firebase is possibly the incorrect thing to use. Otherwise, I would say I would use. Well, yeah, I was use an HTTP endpoint, and then if you needed to create then a real-time connection, then I would use the likes of maybe HTTP2. So you've got gRPC, which is then gRPC remote protocol communication, which then opens up sockets. And do I watch anime? No, not really. Not a big fan of anime. Like kind of Marvel fan, a little bit of a DC Comics fan, but not an anime fan really at all. One of my colleagues at work is a huge anime fan, actually. But it's a strange question. Yeah, thanks for asking the question, but a strange question. Do I watch anime? So what else have we got? We've got so I think lots of people, like young people, that get into Marvel fan. Okay, then I'm leaving. Yeah, good stuff. I like lots of other films. It depends which type of films. It's I like the Mission Impossible films. They're pretty cool. I like Limitless. That was good because that's a lot to talk about the brain. And Lucy is a really cool film. Another one which is about how how you can stimulate the brain, how people get more clever and clever all the time. Anyway, so I think that most newbie people, like if they've just in school and they want to get into the web development or programming sector, it's really difficult nowadays to know which technology they should start off with. I mean, when I started, it was quite simple. You learn either C or C++ or Java if you wanted to get into that form of programming. If you want to do like websites, was simple, HTML, CSS, and you learned JavaScript, done. And then if you wanted to communicate with a database, you used PHP or JSP, and it was really simple. We didn't have web apps at that time, that because the browsers were so crappy, you really had to be careful about what you you put inside of your code, it had to be lightweight. But now today with websites, web apps, progressive web apps, mobile apps and so on, it's really difficult for people to decide, where should I start? I'm still a fundamental believer that everyone should always spend enough time to learn HTML, because let's face it, at one point you're going to have to write some HTML to show some form of email or some error page or something like that. If you're going to learn HTML, you've got to learn some basic CSS as well. And whilst you're at it, if you're going to create a website, then at least learn some JavaScripts. Do you know Alpha Kenny Body? I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. So where was I? Yeah, CSS and JavaScript. So there we go. If the first task is like to create a simple set. I'm not going to say it fast. If you're going to create, you should create a simple website in the beginning, just to do the basic type of authentication, for example. Create a login. What does this say then? Come on, let's have a look at this stupid message. Yeah, that's stupid. Let's delete it, huh? Create some form of simple website where you can then just learn how to create a login form. And once you've done a login form and it kind of looks nice, then create some form of kind of like profile. And if you're able to then be able to select an image or something and be able to then upload an image, you're getting there. You're really getting there to learn how to do some basic stuff. And once you've got that far, then I would suggest you kind of look into using a little bit of PHP or using Node.js, but I would kind of say look at PHP to then learn how you can create a small local host. It's clever stuff. It's very intelligent. So this is this chat is actually about programming and how people can become like web developers, programmers, create websites, web apps, iPhone apps, Android apps, program their own devices for home and stuff like that. So we're not here to talk about laughing cats or stuff like that. Anyway, so once you've created your little website, then you can once you've done all this, then once you can learn some PHP where you can communicate with the server, you can connect with this response, and from this one point you've then got the access to the likes of databases and so on from here. And there's some really great frameworks, be it Symfony or Laravel, which you can look at, which have already out of the box frameworks which you can install, and they can create these endpoints. And there's lots of copy paste code which you can use to be able to talk with a database, and so you don't actually need to do anything. What are we doing here? Bye bye. So yeah, once you've learnt some PHP, you can then essentially talk from a website to a server, and you've learnt the kind of basics of what it is you want to do. You can't think about doing this overnight. It's still going to take you possibly a couple of weeks to learn how to do this, but learning how to program is not a quick thing. You cannot learn it overnight. So I would suggest taking the time out to start with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, PHP, small bit of MySQL as well. But like I said, Laravel and or Symfony, depending upon which one you want to use. Now, my suggestion would be, as a beginner, to use Laravel, because Laravel is nice and has some very, very basic things for you to be able to communicate with a MySQL database, MongoDB database, or even SQLite database as well. But that's the starting point. And once you've mastered all of this, you'll start realizing that you can do lots and lots of other things with PHP and the basic HTML. So once you've done this part, then the next step is to learn something like Angular or React. React then gives you the ability to add some form of framework for the front end website. So you can split it down into little components. So it's more like component based programming. So you would then create little boxes or elements on the website which are completely modular. So when one part of the application is created, you only have to concentrate on a single part of the application. So there's another thing for people to look at is Angular or React. Which one do you want to use? Well, there's also Vue, which is VUE, which you can use as well. Now, experience from other people telling me about Vue. Vue is kind of like this easier version of learning React or native Angular, should I say. So possibly would be advisable to look at learning Vue first of all. And if you can learn Vue, you've got to have a good understanding, well, mediocre understanding of JavaScript as well, vanilla JavaScript. So, but that's this here is something that you really, if you concentrated for say 6-8 weeks on this, and you bought a couple of books, you could fulfill this in 8 weeks of learning. So we're talking good 20-30 hours a week, and you should have learned some stuff. And there's plenty of videos and all the stuff that I've spoken about here. So it's really easy to do. Let's have a look. How did you see all that? Amazing what people comment, huh? Mm-hmm. So if it says there's one person watching, I'm not quite sure whether that's my other computer that's watching it, but it shouldn't be. If you have a question, then ask a question, please. I've actually just sat here, I was just watching random YouTube videos actually, because I don't kind of have anything that is of interest to watch at the moment, or to learn, or because I'm trying to take a little bit of a rest at night time from programming, just to relax, because I did a bit too much over the past 6 months. So I'm trying to relax a little bit and just chill out watching TV, and yeah. But this evening I've watched all Netflix, and I've watched all half interesting stuff on Netflix, apart from anime, which I'm not going to watch because I'm not interested in. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know whether this was fun. I don't know whether I'm going to do it again. I mean, let's have a look at who's then this person. Let's have a look. See what rubbish that person says. 51 subscribers. Videos. Baking with brownies. What to do if your internet goes out? Interesting. Sarah and Duck anime opening. Amazing frog meets bud. Interesting. That makes me laugh actually on YouTube, the amount of just rudeness that people write. I mean, did he not have anything better to say? You know, I mean, I could comment on lots of people's videos, but it's just not me. I've always found YouTube as something. Well, when I started my channel in 2009, I created the videos actually for me to be able to watch myself. Didn't kind of imagine that anyone would actually watch any of my videos. I mean, why would they? But I just figured I'd just keep on making them, and if they were any help for anyone, then it's kind of pretty cool, you know. I started with doing basic PHP videos, explaining how what primitive types are with programming, how you can then do variable assignments, basic functions, basic things with PHP, and seemed to get some good response. And then I did some basic HTML videos which showed you how you could let's turn that off, how you could then create your own basic dynamic website or a static website, which seemed to also have a lot of response. You know, lots and lots of people still watch that video today. And then I did a couple about CSS, which still today, I mean, has huge response on it, which is really amazing that it can have that much response. And I kind of never really cared about whether someone did write a negative comment or anything like that on the video, because it's just there for people to see, you know, and if they can learn something from what I do, then that's good. You know, it's the hardest thing about doing programming is keeping motivated, is keeping focused on what it is that you think about, what you want to learn, you know, and what your target is. So if you don't have a plan of what it is you want to program, then you're already seeking failure. The best thing to do is write down your goal of what it is you want to program and do that goal. And once you get to that goal, then look at how you can then move on to the next goal based upon the code that you've already written. And if you ever have a problem, kind of try to solve it a little bit, but then if you can't solve it, then write a comment to say, hey, you're going to do this later, and then find something that you can continue with, and then continue with that, and then go as far as you can with this until you can't go any further, and then find something else on the same project you can keep going on. Because it can be that whilst doing another part of the application, you then work out how to solve the other part of your code that you struggled with previously. and then you resolve what you're doing here, and it can be that this then allows you to then go back to the other parts that you were doing, you see. So but just by hitting one problem and then focusing on this problem all the time, you get kind of blinkered to be able to resolve it. So the best way is to just write what it is your thoughts were at the time, what you were struggling with as a comment by that code, and leave it, right? And just remember that you need to come back to it, and then go on and go on and go on. Because if you've got a well-structured plan, then you should always be able to move left and right based upon your code and do other parts of the code, because then it becomes a lot more modular. If you create like monolithic code that just entangles itself all over the place, then you're always going to struggle in the future to then detangle it. So if you try and write code that is not dependent upon anything else, so if you create a, let's say, send message form.php, try and you've got a class or something that's there that sends message class. Try and make sure that this one class only does send message, and it doesn't require any other files to work. So but the thing is, if you start coupling other classes and other dependencies inside of this other one class, then it's difficult to extract it at a later stage to possibly use it somewhere else, and it's difficult to test. So you always try and write what it is a class does in your code, and this kind of goes with any form of coding that you're going to do. If you're programming Java or programming Swift and so on, if you're programming Swift and so on, then you should try always to simplify what the code shouldn't go in this file, and and keep it. It's called single responsibility, meaning that you have one class, it has one responsibility of one thing to do, and if it's going to send a message, then all it should do is send a message. It shouldn't receive messages. It shouldn't like pass messages. It shouldn't do any of that. It should just send message. And then if that, so that's it. Keep it single responsibility. Ultimately, a class should really only have like one public method, and that should be the doing method. It could possibly also have a couple of helper methods, like is sending message, has sent message, has error, and stuff like that. But these are all like methods that have like a has, is, did connection to it. Your main method should be then should do something, and so that's the way that. And if you're going to write a class or something that has lots of methods, then you should try and use some forms of interfaces or abstract classes or protocols, depending upon which language you're using, to define what the actual public methods are going to be, and then the properties that they are required to have. Because once you've done that, you can documentate that, and then you know what this should do, and you actually don't need to implement it, because you can always give the interface or protocol to another class which is going to use it, meaning that you can just write a fatal error or throw not implemented error or something in that implementation to know, well, this code works based upon an interface or a protocol, and I need to implement the concrete class here. So, and it means that you've separated the business logic with the usage, and this is a good way of programming. So, if you can get this, if you can use this kind of concept, all right, it does really help a lot. So, I'm kind of done now. Well, I'm guessing it's not being useful. But I'm also not expecting people to be watching it all the time, right? So if you did watch, well, I can see you didn't watch, then thank you very much anyway. And if you did watch it afterwards, then please write some comments on here. Negative. So if you want to write a stupid comment that has nothing to do with programming or anything like that, do it, and I'm more than happy to delete it as quick as I can. I'm not going to react to it. I'm not going to write a message back. If you do have a constructive criticism about the stuff I've said or the stuff I didn't say, or if I said something wrong, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll more than likely answer it because it's constructive criticism. If you've got any wishes to talk that I should talk about, yeah, feel free. I don't really want to do any more screencasts anymore. Can't be bothered. There's so many good videos out there from other people that why should I do it? Because there's... Hi. 1 second. I am here. So, do you have a question? I was gonna close the video, but if you have a question, then I'm happy to. Hi. I'm happy to answer it. Excuse me. If you don't have a question, then I'm going to wish everyone a nice evening, and maybe we'll. Maybe I'll do another one. I don't know, but need a topic first. Give me a topic. That's why I just named this chat, based upon... I'm happy to speak about anything or give my views on anything, to be honest with you, but ultimately this is about a technical programming video. So if you have any questions about web development or programming, or what is the Bermuda Triangle? Okay, well, the Bermuda Triangle is a spot in the world that is around the Hawaii area, that if you look on Wikipedia, it will provide you with a good description, and I'm positive if you look at the YouTube video, it will also tell you that it's a part of the world where boats are on planes and people are supposed to have gone missing there, and it's some form of like magical area which sucks in boats and planes. But this is myth, it's fantasy, it's fact, it's fictional, it's whatever. See ya. Anyway, right, I'm going now. So have a nice evening. Bye bye.